Hello, BookTube. The 30th of June, so I thought I'd look back at what I've read this month. It's not been bad, actually. I've read more than I usually do. I've read 8 books, plus a couple of issues of London Review books, I think, probably. and they're all novels apart from one. Um, yeah. So just the last one I've read, so that's most fresh in my mind. Also, the other thing is about it. Yeah, 8 books, and 6 of them by writers I've never heard of, which I think is quite good. And I'll try and show what made me pick them up. So anyway, this was the latest one I read, Colin McCann, 13 Ways of Looking. And it's 4 short stories. The main one is called 13 Ways of Looking. And brilliantly written, really, really good. Bloomsbury. When was it published? Fairly recently, I think. Oh, he's written quite a lot as well. When was this? Oh, no, 2015, so it is a good 11 years old, actually. But I've not come across him before. I've not read anything of his before. And the intriguing stories, novella. The first one is a novella. It's about 100 pages, I think, telling the story of uh, an elderly man, a judge in New York, with a son who has disappointed him. Anyway, he's very ill. He knows he's on his last legs. He's in his 80s. He wants to go he goes to a restaurant to have a sort of reconciliation meal with his son. And there's a lot of description of the relationships between various people. And this old man is well liked, and but his son is not, called Elliot. There's a red kite up above. I can hear it calling. Is that all right? Are you all right with red kites, Merlin? Good boy. And anyway, they have the meal. The son is on the phone all the time. Nasty piece of work, really. And he leaves, and there's a snowstorm going on, and his father has to make his own way back to his apartment, which is not far. And he does have an assistant, but he decides to try and walk. And in the course of that, someone punches him. He falls and dies. And so part of the thing is finding out what has actually happened. And it's left a little bit ambiguous, but beautifully written. And the same goes for the other stories, which are slightly shorter. Yeah. One called What Time Is It Where You Are? And then one called Shikol, which is a beautiful story, actually. It's a woman adopts a child from, I think it's Romania or somewhere, severely sort of disadvantaged child who can't speak. And they're on the west coast of Ireland, and it's set on Christmas Day. She buys him a wetsuit because she thinks he might like swimming, and they go out for a swim. And then she makes the Christmas meal, and she has a drink or two, and then in the morning she discovers he's missing. and so a lot of it is what's, and the wetsuit is missing. So I think he's swum away and drowned or something. And I won't spoil it by telling the story, but again, it's a really engrossing story. So I enjoyed Colin McCann. I've not come across him before. And before that, I read another writer I've not heard of before, Caleb Azumar Nelson. Small Worlds. This is a complete novel written in. It's his second novel. 20 published 2023, and it's told from the point of view of a man called Stephen, who's of Ghanaian descent, living in Peckham in London, and it's about his family has fallout with his father, and it's about the lifestyle and the relationships of the families and so on. It's not about drugs or violence or gang warfare and the kind of things you sometimes expect from a novel of an immigrant sort of family set in London. But there's a little bit of racism comes into it. They talk about the police assassination of Mark Drummond, as they see it, this police assassination anyway. And the rest of it, though, is that is really about is sort of ordinary life. And the reason I picked the book up was just the first line. Since the one thing that can solve most of our problems is dancing, it only makes sense. Blah blah blah, and he goes on. And that sentence keeps cropping up. The only thing that can solve our problems is dancing. I love that. That's so amusing. And the boy it's the sort of biography of him. Perhaps it is the author, but it is a novel. He goes clubbing and partying quite a lot. As a young man, maybe is he 20, 21, that sort of age, or even late teens. And he's out to enjoy himself. Things go wrong. Things go wrong with that at that kind of age. He drops out of university, he doesn't get the grades he wants, and falls out with his father, and these sort of ordinary everyday things, I suppose you could say, but it's written with such style and such charm, and there's almost a poetic element to the writing. The lines keep coming back. One of the lines is, to fall asleep with grief is not to sleep at all. And that crops up a few times. And then this about the dancing. And there's a lot about music. And it's, although I play music for a living, this is music I know nothing about. And of course, now with the benefits of YouTube music and things like this, you can check out any mention of music. So he talks about him and his girlfriend, they get hold of this album by somebody called Jay Dilla, and it's called Donuts. Now, I've never heard of Jay Dilla, I've never heard of Donuts, but I had a listen. It does exist. It is a real album, quirky and unusual, and I enjoyed it. Not my kind of music at all, but obviously the kind of music that a Ghanaian would listen to. And he mentions a lot of Ghanaian musicians, and he's more into jazz really than I am. Kind of blue, Miles Davis, and those kind of, but lots of different musical influences mentioned, which I find that really interesting, and they're all real, although it's not fiction, as I say. But a very life-affirming book, I think. So many novels about immigrant life are full of deprivation and misery, and it's nice to have something that has this uplifting aspect to it. There are tragedies in it, and his mother dies, and various things, and but nothing kind of cataclysmic. Nobody's murdered, there's not gun battles and there's not drug gangs running around. It's none of that, which is a tremendous relief, actually. So that was good. Before that, I read Ian McEwan's The Children Act, which I've just started reading more Ian McEwan. I'd not really read him before. I've read a couple of his other novels as well now, and they're all, uh, brilliantly written. Of course, Children Act is it's from the point of view of a high court judge, a very, you know, upper middle class, highly educated woman who's a high court judge, and the judgments she has to make about things like the uh, welfare. Well, it's all about the welfare of children and so on. But that sounds a bit boring. It's actually really interesting and informative. I think you learn a lot about how the law works and so on. Um, a young man who she deals with becomes obsessed with her, becomes a little almost a stalker. But it's not a tragedy. It's about people's lives, a certain kind of person's life. So that was great. And then one more, again, Raymond Queneau, Zazie in the Metro, French philosopher Raymond Queneau, um, co-founded Oulipo, which is a sort of intellectuals writing circle where they set themselves kind of strange tasks and things. And but the book itself is not is a it's a very good read. Zazie is a young girl who comes to stay with her uncle, and in Paris she wants to ride on the metro, but the metro workers are on strike, so she can't, and she makes a complete nuisance of herself. But all the her uncle and all the other people around are also uh, hell bent on enjoying themselves. And they don't care that she's a what is she, 11-year-old girl, so they take her out to clubs and boozy sort of venues, and her uncle turns out to be a have a he has a burlesque act where he dresses up as a pink fairy. So it's very very amusing. I mean, just the image. They made a film out of it. I'd never heard of it, but it's Penguin Classic, and it was great. It's translated by Barbara Wright, and one of the interesting things about it is the language, because it's obviously written in a kind of French slang. So she must have had to try and find a way to transpose that and translate that into English. So she does come up with all kinds of anglicized versions, which is you know interesting and amusing. I mean, the first word is a great big long word. How can he stink so though? And that's it. This is the uncle when he's waiting in the train station, the guard hostels for his niece. So it's very funny, and ends up in a sort. It's almost like a farce, a Brian Rix farce. The chaos at the end of it, but brilliant, really, really enjoyable. Um, oh yeah, before that I read William Boyd's The Romantic. Now I've read a few William Boyd's, and again, it's somebody I've only really started reading fairly recently. He's a well-known writer. He's been making a big impression for long, 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 long time. um, but I've only just started reading a few of it. I read a book called Trio that he wrote recently. This was called The Romantic. Pretty big, hefty work. It's a novel. It's about 450, 500 pages, and it's a fictional biography of somebody called Cashel Greville Ross, born in 1799. And I wondered when I started reading it, why write a fictional biography? But it became very absorbing. He takes part in the Battle of Waterloo, for one thing, as he was born in 79, so he would have been 16 at the time of the Battle of Waterloo. He doesn't fight in it, he takes part in it. And it gives us a very good impression of the chaos, just like Stendhal does in the Charterhouse of Parma. So, but very lively, and it goes to various adventures, a bit like uh, uh, um, I can't think, but a little bit of a romp, but marvelous read. Before that, Andrew Michael Hurley. Um, Barrowbeck. I can't read my own writing. I haven't got a copy of that. Barrowbeck, which is described on the cover as a folk horror. Strange book, very unusual. It's set in this place, Barrowbeck, which is somewhere on the Yorkshire-Lancashire border. I know the kind of place because I'm from round there, very close by. And each chapter goes forward in time, begins about 600-700 AD with a Viking raid on the village, and then it goes through, Civil War period and up. And then it stretches ahead as well, and there's an uncanniness about the place, but it's never revealed what is uncanny, what is going on, what is the strange kind of qualities about this Barrowbeck. There's a little bit of a sinister. There are sometimes as somebody gets accused of witchcraft and so on. Somebody gets strange powers, but basically it leaves you guessing. So that's Barrowbeck. That was good though. Before that, another one never come across before, but I think a lot of people will know about it. Days at the Morisaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yagisawa. Translated from Japanese. And set in a bookshop, of course. And nothing much happens. But that doesn't make it uninteresting. You could find out a lot about Japanese writers from this, but I guess a lot of the writers mentioned have not been translated into English. It's written in a very simple style, or translated anyway that way. Um, it's set in the mind of a young woman, or a girl, if you like, young woman, I think we could say, who's been disappointed in love, and she's depressed, and she's living in this bedroom. She won't leave her bedroom, and her uncle. This is a little bit as I say in the Zazie and the Metro. Actually, her uncle entices her to come and live with him in the bookshop, in a cramped um, room full of books. She doesn't want to at first, but he's kind to her. He wants to look after her, and um, he's interested in her welfare, and he knows she's unhappy. And she gradually opens up, meeting the other customers, and generally getting to know, and she doesn't even read books, but she starts to read. And yeah, it's just a flowering of this frozen bud of a woman, and she opens up. It's lovely, really nice, positive, and short novel, an international bestseller. And then finally, a book I got from the library. I just saw it and thought that looks interesting. Charles Foster, Being a Human. uh, now this is classed as non-fiction. I think it's the only non-fiction on my list. Yeah, it is. But it's fair to say Being a Human is probably more fiction than any of the others. um, it's split into three sections. The first section is about um, it's about the movement of humans through various social um, manifestations, if you like. Begins in the Upper Paleolithic. That's the biggest section of the book. The Upper Paleolithic was 45,000, 50,000 years ago. And the author, Charles Foster, thinks that's when life was at its best for human beings. That was when we were hunter-gatherers. And he has the arguments about how simple and easy life was then. You just went, hunted your bison or your antelope or whatever it is, cooked and roasted it, sang songs in front of the fire, and had a nice time. I'm no expert, but I have a funny feeling it wasn't quite like that. And Charles Foster argues that since then we have degenerated. He moves next to the Neolithic, which is the middle part of the book, where farming began, and the cultivation of crops and animal husbandry and all that, and we began to settle in one place rather than moving about all the time. And he thinks that began the rot setting in the Neolithic. And then the final bit is, I think he calls it anthropocentric or whatever. The last period. I haven't got the book with me at the moment now. Basically, a story of slow degeneration, and the author acts it out, or he tries to. Right at the beginning of the book, he goes off into the woods in Derbyshire with his son, who's 14, I think, and they live in the woods as if they're in the Upper Paleolithic. They do have a tent though, and various other modern accoutrements. So maybe it's not quite like it was in the Upper Paleolithic. And they eat roadkill. You didn't really get roadkill in the Upper Paleolithic either. And I'm just very sceptical. But he's no fool. I mean, he's a well-educated man. But the whole argument, I think, is just untenable. It's just absolutely ludicrous, in my humble opinion. I dare say he knows more about it than me. But I do not think life was so comfortable in the Upper Paleolithic. Nasty, Brutus, and short, I think, might sum it up. But I could be wrong. And it was at first I thought I'm not going to read this book because as it opens, he's doing this camping trip with his son, and I thought this is ludicrous. I'm not going to read this nonsense. It's absolutely absurd. But then I kept reading, and I did enjoy it actually. And to be fair, I did read the whole book. It's only fair if you're going to criticise something. And it's nice to have a completely different slant on something. We all think we've progressed, don't we? We all think human society is in a state of progression. You know, we've moved on. We're better now than we were in Victorian times, and they were better than the 18th century. But it might not be true. I think it is, but um, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be alive in Paleolithic times at the age I am now, or even in the 18th century or Victorian times. I just wouldn't, because we're able to, look after ourselves better. But anyway, those are my reads for June. That's quite a lot for me. I don't usually get through so much as that, and not one of them was a waste of time. They were all fascinating, weren't they? What do you think? Thank you, BookTube.